Joining us now for more on this is Jonathan Schanzer. He is the Senior Vice President for Research at the Foundation for Defense of Democracies and a former counterterrorism analyst at the U.S. Treasury Department. All right, Jonathan, is Iran bluffing or will they make good on their threat?
Well, I think all eyes are on the 7th of July. We're going to find out whether the Iranians do begin to enrich beyond the levels that were allowed pursuant to that 2015 agreement. We have an IAEA meeting just scheduled a couple of days after that, so the UN is preparing for this. I think that there's a good possibility that Iran does push the envelope. I think the question is whether they push it far enough to prompt the U.S. and perhaps some of the other parties to that original 2015 agreement to act to impose additional sanctions or perhaps even further than that.
And if they do move forward, they're going to want to let agencies and agents in there to show, yes, indeed, come take a look. Here it is. We did what we said we were going to do.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, they're certainly not pretending that they're trying to stay within the confines of the agreement. I think they're basically saying, look, we're under a lot of sanctions pressure right now from the United States. We're feeling isolated, and we don't see the need to remain in that deal. And I think really this is a sign that the president's policy of imposing those sanctions, of imposing that political isolation is working. I think the real question now is whether the Brits and the Europeans join the United States and take action against Iran to basically punish them for this kind of malign activity.
Yeah, that's a good question. Will they?
I think we don't know. I do think that it's a good sign that we saw the Brits engage in this operation off the coast of Gibraltar. It's a clear sign that they're working with us in coordination with U.S. military, U.S. intelligence to block the shipment of Iranian oil. I think that's an important step. We've seen some other indications that the Brits are perhaps with us on some other elements of this campaign to isolate Iran. And I think it's also worth noting that the Germans have also indicated that they agree with U.S. assessments about Iranian aggression in the Persian Gulf, the shooting down of the drone, the bombing of some of those vessels. This is all an indication that perhaps the Europeans and Brits, even though they were not exactly happy when President Trump pulled out of the nuclear deal last year, that they perhaps may be coming around to us and perhaps may be willing to join us.
Yeah, but what about China and Russia? Are they in?
They're not. And I think we know that that's going to always be the case. I think the hope is that if China continues to buy oil from Iran, that they're going to continue to drive down the price. They're not going to pay full price for it. And so Iran will continue to lose some money as a result of this. The Russians, of course, will do anything to confront the United States and to undermine our leadership position in the world. So we're not going to have everybody on board, but I think having the Europeans would be a terrific sign, and we may be seeing some positive signs right now in that direction.
All right, well, that's good news. Meanwhile, the president tweeted a warning saying, quote, Iran has just issued new warning. Rouhani says that they will enrich uranium to, quote, any amount we want if there is no new nuclear deal. Be careful with threats, Iran. They can come back to bite you like nobody has been bitten before. All right, so Jonathan, if Iran takes the next step this Sunday, how should the Trump administration react? Right now, the sanctions don't seem to be stopping Iran, and nobody has an appetite for a military response.
Well, look, I think, first of all, I do think that the sanctions are working. I think the political pressure is working. This is why Iran is acting out in the way that it is. I think the key here is to see whether we can bring our European allies on board, whether we can add to that international pressure on Iran. I don't think that we should be drawn into conflict. I think the president was probably correct not to respond even to the downing of that drone 2 weeks ago. I think that if we stay the course and continue to put pressure on Iran, we could yet see some real movement in terms of the kind of buckling of its economy and watching Iran come to the table to negotiate.
So if they come to the table, Jonathan, quickly here, because I've got about 30 seconds with you. If they come to the table, listen, President Trump says he could come up with a new deal in about 20 minutes. So what items would be or should be in an improved Iranian nuclear deal?
I think it might take more than 20 minutes, but dealing with terrorism, support for rogue states, cyber activity, human rights, all of these things need to be on the table. But of course, no sunset provisions for that nuclear program, which was the fatal flaw of that original deal.
We'll keep watching. Jonathan Schanzer, thank you.